Hello, I'm Michael Dennin, and this is the Physics of X, where X is everything except politics. And we're in the middle of talking about the Dresden Files, where Harry Dresden, Chicago's only practicing wizard, does amazing stuff with physics and amazing stuff with faith. This is one of our episodes about faith. Now, just like some of the other ones on faith, this is really, we don't got time in 5 minutes to do everything. It's a really big concept. But what we're going to talk about is this idea I've shared of, okay, you got the fullness of reality. Some of it is physical reality. That's what physics studies. The rest we're going to be very clever and call non-physical reality because it's not the physical reality that we're studying. And there's then a fundamental question of, okay, as humans who clearly have part of physical reality, our body, our brains, all of that stuff, and we interact with it through our senses, are we also interacting with non-physical reality? Is there a way in which the non-physical can interact with the physical? Many physicists have said, no, there's absolutely no way non-physical and physical can interact. But if you think about it from faith language and religion language, that's primarily what a soul would be. If you think about it from metaphysics, that's the idea of consciousness or mind as a separate thing from body. And the real interesting question is, what would it take to really be able to distinguish what is reality really like? How do we know if it's purely physical or if there is something like a soul or consciousness or mind? Now, one of the arguments that typically shows up in this space is, well, look, it's obvious. Your brain is what's causing you to think. Your brain is physical. If your brain stops, you're no longer thinking because that's all there is. And they often use an analogy to a computer and the hardware in the computer, the CPU, the memory, and so on. The challenge with this, I think, is it actually doesn't prove anything. It just states what your assumptions are. You are assuming all that exists is physical reality. Therefore, the brain must be like the CPU. When the CPU is done, the computer is done. When your brain is done, you are done. But the interesting thing is there is another way to think about it that an analogy with computers works perfectly. It could be that your brain is basically the fancy monitor that is interfacing with your soul, which is the CPU. And that's the interaction. And so really, you at your core are something non-physical, this CPU, that's you and your consciousness and your mind, interacting with the world through something physical, the brain. These are two different models. And in the book Ghost Story, Harry Dresden is actually spending an entire story dead, so there's a spoiler for you. But he has an interesting conversation with the archangel Uriel, where he makes a statement that he's finally learned souls are real. And Uriel points out, well, you've actually got it a little bit backwards. You don't have a soul, he says. You are a soul and you have a body. This is an interesting, fundamentally different way of looking at it, but it's very similar to ideas in various non-Western religions. It's actually fairly grounded in what Western religions, the key ones, think about. It's in some Greek philosophy. And in fact, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my colleagues at UC Irvine, Don Hoffman, who's done a lot of work based on evolutionary theory to show that consciousness may actually be the fundamental reality, not physical reality. So it is still an open question. Are we a soul and we have a body, or are we just a body? And thinking through how we might figure this out, what are the things we could do to determine this, is one of the fun challenges. So again, big questions there, lot to explore, but hopefully that gives you a little nugget from the Archangel Uriel in the Dresden Files. And this has been the Physics of X. This has been the Physics of X, where X is everything but politics. Make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notifications of every episode coming weekly straight to you.